Hey, how's it going? So today we are going to do a quick update video having to do with the Permobil 3G seating and specifically adjusting the width of the armrests. Now I made a video about this a number of years ago, but Permobil has updated things with the way you adjust the width on your armrests. And if you follow that old video, you're gonna kind of get into a spot that may not make sense how to get out of. So we're gonna do an update. We've got my daily 2021 F3 here, and then we've got an older M300. I think this one is from 2016, something like that. And I'm gonna show you the differences between the two chairs and what to do if you, well, basically you're not supposed to pull this bolt all the way out, but if you do, it's pretty easy to recover from. And also at the end, we have a new chair over here. We managed to get an Invacare TDX SP2, I believe. I'll talk more about this later, but this is gonna be a really handy addition to the fleet. We are gonna bounce around in this video a little bit, so if you wanna get right to it, I'll put time codes down below, and the YouTube chapters feature will work with those as well. So if you wanna skip right to adjusting these and you don't wanna know the history or see how the old one works, you can do that. Here we have the two chairs in question, 2021 and maybe 2016, 2017, something like that. And what we're gonna be covering is adjusting the width between these two. Now, my chair has slightly different armrests on it, but the adjustment mechanisms are all the same. So let's spin these around and I'll show you the differences to look for between them. Now real quick, I'm just gonna go over how to adjust the armrest width on these older chairs to show you the differences. So the older style chairs have a plastic cover that looks like this. You've got two bolts, maybe with a couple of nuts sticking out here, and then there's two little screws down in here. Then to adjust the height, we've got bolts on the top and bottom of each side here, and that's how you adjust the height. Moving over to the newer chair, you can see the plastic cover looks a little bit more streamlined and a little bit different. Instead of having the two bolts right here to remove the plastic cover, they've been relocated to the outside edges, and there's now 4 of them, on top on each side and also on the bottom. They're still the same size thread, and you still need to be careful with them because if you tighten them too much, or if this cover's not on here all the way, they can't break. And to adjust the height of this mechanism, we've got 4 screws as well, but they're buried deep down inside here. If you look close, you can see there's a hole in the plastic cover and you can just barely see the bolt. So if you're adjusting the height on these, you'll want to stick your Allen wrench in there, loosen them just a little bit, and then that frees up this whole mechanism to slide up and down. I grabbed a 5mm T-handle Allen wrench here. I found these things are the easiest for working on chairs. I'll leave a link to them down below. They just sell them at Harbor Freight. This kit is anywhere between $15 and like $21, depending on different sales. They're not the highest quality things in the world, but they do have these speed tips on the end. And the nice thing is, well, not the nice thing, these will sometimes break off, but all you have to do is use a grinder and you can flatten that off or even grind in another bevel in there if they do break. I've broken probably a couple of the smaller ones, but I've had this set for years now and it works pretty good. So both of these chairs have this bolt on the end that holds on the armrest. They're both 6mm. And this one is very tight apparently. Now previously on these older chairs, if you want to completely remove the armrests, all you do is take this bolt completely out. And you can see here it's not very long, just a little short one. And once that's out, you can lift up and the armrest just pulls right off. This bar that goes all the way across the back that both of the armrests are mounted to, the armrest slips over the top of it. You can see we've got a hole there and it just slides on like that. To adjust the armrest width on these, you're going to need a slightly smaller Allen wrench. In the case of this chair, it's a 3mm. But basically you need to get a socket and loosen up this jam nut. Sometimes you can get them to turn without doing that, although I don't recommend doing it that way. Let's see. Yeah, that one's not going to turn. Let me grab a socket real quick. Now this clearly is not the right tool for the job, but I don't have any sockets easily accessible where I'm at right here. So we're just going to loosen that nut just a little bit. That works like a lock nut. Then you can put your Allen wrench in here and loosen these threads just a little bit. You don't want to take them all the way out. Now some chairs may have bolts that look like this in there instead of this little pin with a lock nut on it. So it may be a little bit different, but on these older chairs, it's going to be right here, totally visible on the outside. Now that that's loosened up, in theory, depending on how old and damaged this chair is, you should be able to grab this whole thing and slide out on it. And there we go. Looks like it moved. Now, these are typically set up from the factory for the appropriate width. You can see here there's a little notch basically turned into this bar, and there's a few different sections like that. This notch is what's going to line up with this pin. So you can adjust these, but be forewarned, the more you do it, this pin is going to start scratching up this surface, and it's going to be a lot less likely to stay in place. And after you tighten that down once, it's going to mar it up a little bit, and it'll be really difficult to pull this in and out. I'm actually really surprised on this chair. Normally these do not move this easily, so I picked the right chair for this. But anyways, there you can see how that works. Let's move on to the new ones. It's extremely simple. I just want to say real quick, I'm not a Permobil apologist or a fanboy. I just happen to like their products. There are, however, a number of things they do that I cannot stand, and I am vocal about those things. One of which was this old mechanism for adjusting the width on the armrests. Like I said, you could only do it once or twice, and then the thing was so gummed up you couldn't adjust it anymore. But on the new ones, they fixed it. You may notice here that we're missing those screws that this other chair has to adjust the width, these ones here. Now, I've been getting a lot of people contacting me because they've used the method on the old video to try and remove their armrests or do various things. They do it on the new chair and then they can't get it back together. Check this out. Same 5mm Allen key. Actually, let me get a Sharpie. I want to mark these real quick because it's really important that I get them back in just the right spot. Okay, to adjust the width, all you need is the same 5mm Allen key. All you do is loosen this, maybe one turn at the very most, put your wrench away, then grab a hold of the edge and pull. See how it slides now? So much easier. This back tube now is completely hollow on these newer chairs, and this bolt is probably about yay long. It goes all the way back in here to like a 45-degree angle that's sliced off, and it's kind of a wedge friction clutch. So as you tighten that up, it cinches up the mechanism inside here. Let's go ahead and take the bolt out all the way to simulate what happens if you accidentally do that. I personally have not done that on this chair yet, but I'm pretty confident that we should be able to get it back together. As you can see here, we're turning it. It's not coming out, it just keeps turning. Then at some point we can just grab the bolt and it will just pull all the way out. See how long that is? Now if we try to put it back in, it just keeps spinning and there's nothing for it to grab onto, which means that your armrest is just going to come right off. And also our width is adjusting at the same time. So it very quickly becomes a mess. Hang on, I didn't plan this through. I gotta put the camera down for a second. I went ahead and just pulled that off. It's sitting down there on the floor. You can see the long bolt. So there's a few pieces here we have to watch out for. We've got a couple of these spring washers. So you wanna pull those off and pay attention to which way they're domed. It's dome shaped on one side and concave on the other. So I'm just gonna set this on the floor in the orientation that it goes. Then there's a second one of these here. I'm gonna put that closer to the inside so I remember it goes on the inside. Then this piece here should come right off. There we go. We'll just kind of set that down here. Now this, in theory, should pull all the way out. See how we've got that cut angle on there? Now there's another piece that rides up against this and it's now stuck inside there because we've removed the bolt. So let's see if we can fish that out. Of course I made it out here without my magnet on a stick or a flashlight. So I'm just gonna use my phone here and we can look down inside and maybe see what's going on. Okay, you can see that silver part that's way down in there. What we need to do is grab a hold of that somehow and pull it out. A magnet on a stick would be the easiest way to do this, but I'm gonna try putting a long skinny screwdriver in there and see if we can pull it out that way. I'm just putting it through the holes in the middle and then pulling out. And there we go. You can see, here's our little wedge piece. Actually, I want to try something. I'm curious if using this bolt to extract it will also work. So let's push that back in there. Oh, okay, so it bottoms out right there. So this piece can't go further in there than you can reach with the bolt. So that piece is pushed all the way in. Just grab your bolt, look down in there with a flashlight, you'll see the hole. A little tricky. But you'll be able to get a couple threads on it and then pull the whole thing back out. Did you hear that? Almost airtight. That's funny. Okay, let's go over to the bench and I will put this together and show you how it actually works. I apologize for the lighting here. I haven't quite gotten this all set up correctly yet. But here I've assembled everything. You can see our long bolt is in here. It goes through this shaft. The shaft goes through here. And then you can see our little split piece down here on the end. And what happens as you tighten this up is the threads are going to pull this up and it's going to basically lock it inside that tube on the back of the chair. So I'm going to hold this with one hand and you'll see as I turn it, this piece will come up a little further. There we go. And now you can see that the lip of this is above the edge. So when this whole thing is shoved into a tube and this gets wedged up on the tube itself, it's going to hold it in place. So I'll show you here again. I'm going to tighten this up. See how that pulls upwards? And that's what locks it in place. Turn it back down and it flattens out. Now, if we loosen this all the way, you can see it's no longer connected. So when you pull this out of the chair, this is probably going to stay inside. So it's really cool the way they've modified this setup. Once again, proper engineering for a semi-complex problem, when done properly, yields a very simple solution. So let's go ahead and just kind of start these threads, and we're going to put this back on the chair. We'll just leave it like that for now. Okay, now that I've showed you how this entire setup works, let's go ahead and put it back together. We still have to put this little piece on here, but I'm just now realizing that this won't slide over the end, and this bolt has to be in there to hold everything together. I think what we might have to do is detach this and then slide it on. Hang on a minute here. I need to mark a couple more things with a Sharpie, and then I'll show you what I figure out. Once again, I don't have the proper sockets here, so I'm just using a couple of giant adjustable wrenches. But we need to pull this bolt out of here so that this part will be free of the rest of the turnbuckle mechanism. There's a few things you want to keep track of. You've got the nylock nut on the end. Then there is a little washer. And then these two pieces here pull apart. Then we've got this weird shoulder bolt inside here as well. For now, I'm going to set all these to the side just so they don't fall on the floor and get lost somewhere. Okay, so we've got this little piece here from earlier. I pulled the two spring washers off. I'm going to set those aside just so we don't lose them. Then we're going to take this piece, put it over. Almost forgot, we need to put the spring washers in there. Okay, so we got our two spring washers in there. Then we can put this together, keeping in mind we've got that little detent that needs to ride in the groove there. Then kind of hold everything with one hand if you can. Put our long bolt through here. Then get our wedge piece, put this on the end. This is where I need more hands than I have. We'll just push it up against there like that. Get a few threads started on it so it won't fall off again. Throw the wrench on the floor. Okay, there we go. We've got our threads started. So this is all one piece now. We've got this on here. We've got our spring washers in. So now we can load this entire assembly back into the hole. And it's usually best to hold the armrest up at maybe a 20 or 30 degree angle just so everything fits properly. So we're going to feed all of this back in there. And then go in just far enough so that your armrest can sit on something. Then we need to reconnect this. And you want to pay attention to the way it came apart so that you get everything back on here correctly. So you can look at the other side and compare. It's going to be just the opposite. But on this chair, this shoulder bolt goes in from the outside. I'm going to have to lift this up a little bit. There we go. Then we'll get our washer on here. I'm going to tighten this up real quick with my not the right tool for the job. I apologize for the camera angle here, but I think it's fairly self-explanatory, and I don't have another set of hands to do this. But this nylock basically just tighten it up till it's snug. That's a shoulder bolt, so you can't get it so tight that it's going to prevent this mechanism from moving. Now that we've got everything back in here and connected, I can go ahead and set my width that I want, which I'm glad I marked earlier because we completely took this apart. So we're going to set that right about there. And now all we have to do, as if the process has been that simple, and now we can just simply tighten up this bolt until everything is locked in place. Now you don't want to go too crazy on the tension here, but you do want to get it just snug. So with a wrench this size with my hands, I'm not the strongest person in the world, but I'm just going to tighten this up so it's good and snug. You don't want it coming loose, but you also don't want to stress all these parts and damage the threads. And there you go. It's now reattached to the chair. Armrest goes up and down. And yeah, that's it. Just to recap here real quick, if I want to adjust this now, all I do is loosen this about 1 turn, maybe 1.5, and this just slides freely. Main thing to remember, do not remove this bolt all the way, and do not back it off more than 2 turns at the very most. Otherwise, you're gonna have to go through that whole process that I just discovered how to do. And yeah, there you go. Process works the same on this side. Easy, right? But anyways, that's how you adjust your armrest width on a Permobil, well, pretty much any of the chairs, M3, F3, M5, F5, with 3G seating. I think it was around 2018, 2019, somewhere in there that they switched over to this new mechanism. But again, the way you can tell is by looking at the back plastic cover. I'm gonna take a couple photos and put them side by side on the screen right now and annotate a few key areas to look at. Also, I will put the information about this, at least the photos on how to identify the 2 chairs, on the website, brokenwheelchairs.com. It may take me a few days to get that up there, but it's going to be under the how-to guides section and under Permobil. Now, onto the exciting part, this Invacare chair over here. It uses the Lynx electronics. It does not have the touchscreen joystick on it, but it can still be programmed with the same dongle. I believe they call it the Lynx access key. I've got one of them, but this is going to be a fun chair. We're going to do a lot of cool stuff with this. Right now, the batteries in it are dead. They were good, but the thing has sat long enough that it won't power up now. And this thing has a seat lift, tilt, recline, power legs, basically all the functions. I'm not quite sure why there's 5 buttons on here, but we'll get to that and figure it out. I'm gonna get the batteries recovered or charged or replaced, whatever's necessary to get this chair operational. I'm gonna test the seat lift on it because the Invacare Viva that I got a long time ago, I think it was a pre-production unit and the seating was not very solid. It was also a front wheel drive chair, but this has these sealed motors. So we're gonna pull those off, take them apart, see what it looks like. I wanna know what sealed actually means and if it's possible to get to the brushes. I don't know if they're 2-pole or 4-pole. I don't know if this has the speed package. I don't really know anything about it. But it's gonna be cool now to have an Invacare chair in the fleet so I can actually do some repair videos, show how to adjust some things. Programming is a little bit different because you have to use an app for your phone and a Bluetooth dongle. Those things are not readily accessible, but we can kind of look through it. So if you have any questions about this style of Invacare chair or things you want to know how to adjust or, I don't know, questions in general, put them in the comments down below. It's going to be a little bit before we get to this, but I'm going to work on getting it operational and see what I think about it. And I guess we could also do a review since I have it. I'm not sure how old this chair is, but we'll find out more later. Anyways, hopefully this video was helpful, and if you managed to follow the old video and you got your chair taken apart and now you can't put it back together, we have an explanation on how to do that. So thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in a few days.